And now for the panel. So I'd like to first ask all of you to introduce yourselves. And again, mainly I think everyone here would like to hear your experience with sales development first and foremost. So Patrick?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Patrick Hudgens. I'm the CEO and founder of Delegate. We provide Salesforce administration as a service to venture-backed companies looking to build their internal go-to-market systems. My background is in sales and sales management. Companies like TalkDesk, Figure 8, which is an AI company as well, helped build the sales development team there. So excited to bring what I can to this conversation.
Awesome. Michelle?
Hi, thanks.
You're coming from far.
Yes. Michelle Hobbs, Senior Director of Sales Development at Pendo, a sales experience platform software based in Raleigh, North Carolina. We do have a presence here in San Francisco, but myself and several of my leadership team came out from Raleigh. Been in sales development, inside sales specifically for the last 10 years, building out teams at BMC, Channel Advisor, and now at Pendo. Been there just over 2 years. Came in with a team of 20. We're now over 40 and driving to 60 next year with the growth of the company. So we've been experiencing a lot of change in our organization.
Hey guys, I'm Buck Henry. I work at Intercom, which is a live chatbot, customer messaging products and platform. My background in sales development was I managed our sales development team for about a year. I currently work with our AEs in the small and medium business segment. Looking forward to speaking with you guys today.
Perfect. So the goal really is, AI is a very broad term, and the goal is to leave you with some guidance, walk you through, the thought process that this panel here and I have when we were looking into different AI-based solution in the sales development specifically. The pros, the cons, what do you need to take into consideration when you're looking into specific solutions? Again, we're not here to promote specific vendor or specific solution, but types of solution and what you should be cautious about, or what you should look in, or the different types of solutions. So I really encourage you. At the end, if you have questions for this forum, we'll try to leave some time for that, because I'm sure they can share from their experience and you can benefit from that. The first most obvious one is from your experience, if you could give examples, again, not necessarily specific vendors, but the type of solutions that really helped you or your other colleagues in terms of AI solutions that really help sales development, really help prospecting. So if you can share a few of those examples.
Yeah, I think all of us think in terms of funnels, in terms of pipeline funnels. And if you think of the kind of the top of the funnel, the beginning of the funnel, for me, AI has like the most immediate application towards helping you understand which accounts you should go after, especially if you have a really large TAM. Account prioritization for prospecting, outbound prospecting, targeting who you should be going after, who your reps should be spending their time after. That's like number one in my mind. There's more solutions that are geared towards like the content of the emails and the content of the prospecting, but like the AI that's most baked in my mind is the absolute top of funnel and account selection and prioritization.
Does this go beyond just the account selection, like anything on the prospecting side of specific contacts, people within the account? Okay, you find the right account, help with the prioritization, intent, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if you can start getting like first off, it's like who should we be talking to on an account level, and then it's who on the contact level or the lead level, depending on how your team operates, and who's changed. Like job changes are crazy. That amount of data is pretty crazy. So keeping that data fresh or building a system to keep that data fresh. And I'm not going to mention any vendors, but there are some tools out there. That's like first and foremost in my mind to like application on how AI can help take lookalike data from your existing client base, people you've already sold to successfully, and go out in the market and help your team prioritize.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Patrick. The pulling in not only their engagement with your own content, your own website, but third-party engagement using the topics that you're targeting it within your space, and helping prioritize not only the accounts, but the individual contact with talking points and suggested talking points based on how they've engaged with your content across the marketing framework, as well as what the AI is seeing them engage with across the entire web.
I'd also add to, as you think of going down that funnel, you were talking about accounts, talking about people within those accounts, content within those accounts. We all know at content level, there are certainly services out there that do help you write that content. One thing that we did at Intercom is we actually built a tool that would superimpose our chat widget on somebody's website. It would have something pre-recorded, and it would actually automatically add that couple-second video clip into a sales loft or outreach, or we're using those pretty interchangeably, Cadence. And all, it was about 90% personal or automated, and then there's 10% of personalization, some audio track that we put over top of it. So really grab the customer's attention. You have one chance when you're prospecting to really grab someone's attention. And so hyper-personalization at scale in that automation realm is something that we've seen been really successful.
I think you touched here an interesting point, because you said it's 90% automated and the AI can do a lot of that work, but then there is a 10%, and I think this is applicable for a lot of the processes. I mean, yes, you could use a lot of things to automate and make sure that it takes a lot off the the plate of the SDR, but still leaving specifics and to the SDR to do this extra last mile of personalization or last verification that this is the right person or this is the right account, etc. So it's still saving a lot of time and helping you, but not basically removing the risk of doing something that is completely automated, that you can completely trust the machine. And that's really my next question. I know that when we prepped for this, you had a lot of examples, and we're not going to say specific vendors, but we all had our also bad experiences, right, with trying to adopt solutions. So, but if you can give example at the high level of where are the risks really of where it could hurt the performance, where it could have a negative impact using AI based solutions.
Yeah, and if I'm in the audience, I for sure want us to say vendors, but we're not going to say vendors. But I think anytime that you're responding with content in a bot format, like a client has asked a question and all of a sudden it's a chat bot that you've brought into the email response side of the house, you're running a risk. You're playing with a game with your client base. And if you have a massive TAM and lots of volume, maybe that risk is worth it. But if you have a known universe of clients you're going after with a tight TAM, like let's say you're only going after Fortune 500, for example, you probably don't want to introduce bots into your email cadence, because the risk is your SDRs end up looking like idiots, like they're just responding in kind, and that reflects on your brand. That can tank your brand really early. So that would be first and foremost. And then the last thing is anything that's auto, for me, video auto AI generation is still very in that realm of if your client can tell that it's fake, it's going to hurt your brand at the end of the day. Not just not getting the meeting, but hurt your brand.
And it can be a bit creepy too.
Yes,
I've seen some of these. They can be a bit creepy. I think there's a number of things. First, with regards to the context of it within an email, the content of it, there can be misinterpretation of the language being used or the words being used, and that directs then the response incorrectly, right? So if you're relying on that automation to respond and someone says, "I'm not available," then they use that word "but," right? That is not always detected, how somebody constructs their response. So that can lead to negative experience for the prospect. I think also in the time that we've seen in the last 18 months, AI and its predictive nature it fails us when people are no longer at the office and it's raining in Atlanta, so they're not going out for lunch. So you might be able to get them on the phone. They're at home and they're going into their kitchen to make a sandwich. And so it's not as responsive as we need it to be in times of change that we've seen. And I think the last point I would make in this area is it can be overwhelming for the individual SDR. It's a lot of data coming their way. And trying to discern the signals that they're seeing, that they're hearing, the information that's being put in front of them, and being able to pull it all into a single pane of glass for them to come in every day and work from can be very challenging.
And I'll just add one little piece, kind of on Patrick's point. It is dependent on your total addressable market, but Automate the easy stuff, the small stuff, the stuff that gives you a little bit of time back in your day to do that really unique prospecting. I think that's like, if you want to start small, it's probably the best thing to do. Answering the easy questions like, hey, how can I get a demo? Hey, what is your pricing? Stuff like that you do think you can answer from a frequently asked question perspective. Give the customer an immediate answer. Give them the opportunity to automatically book time in your calendar, like whatever that case is. Let the easy stuff come. Don't spend any time on that so you can spend time. Because time is finite. That's one of your most valuable resources as a rep. Get some time back on your calendar so you can actually do some needle moving stuff.
I think I want to, if I want to sum this up to some extent, like I think if you categorize it into two, and we spoke about it a bit before, like if it's something that doesn't have an immediate touch, immediately touch your prospects, prioritization, prospecting, research, intent, all those, that are actually helping the SDRs. There's, really low risk to it. Okay, so it's your time and your budget and everything, but eventually you try the solution, and worst case, it gives you, bad recommendation, but it's nothing extremely bad happened. But as Patrick said earlier on, and you mentioned, the videos, which are great solutions, but, if you take it to the extreme and you're actually going into the content, I think, I'm not saying like we shouldn't be using AI-based solution for content. We just need to be more cautious with what we do, especially of trying to really personalize. Like AI could really, I put the line between customization and personalization. AI can really customize, so it can learn that this is this persona in this industry, and the best content is of that type. But if you really try to write something from scratch on the fly, or a video from scratch on the fly that a machine built to send an email or a LinkedIn Connect, this is where you're getting to the risky part. I'm not saying we're not going to get there, but in today's solutions and what we see today in the market, this is the risky part that you should really seriously consider before you take. Another, and then that brings me to another thing, Bucky really said something along those lines of automation. And people are thinking about AI and machine learning, and they put it all under one roof, but it's really two types in general, not just for SDRs of solutions. There's, automation related, which is basically, let's take a machine, let's let it learn from what humans are doing well, and let's the machine try to replicate that and automate that, and all the lookalikes that you mentioned, etc. And the other type really is, for lack of a better word, let's not learn from humans. Let's take the process that people do and let machines could analyze and optimize many more parameters than what human could possibly do. And over there, these are solutions, that are autonomous solutions, right? That they're actually making decisions better than human. And it's not in sales. I'll get to the sales, but if you think about marketing, if you think about advertising, all the solutions are like the latter. No human is making decision in Facebook or LinkedIn or Google which ad is going to show up to whom and when and what hour and what type, etc. It's all machine-based, 100%. I'm not saying it's not annoying sometimes for us as consumers, but that's the case because there's no way that the marketeer can sit and make those decisions. So with that, Promo, I'd like to really hear your opinion. Like, in what areas, in what parts of, let's go back to sales development, what parts of the sales development work would you take the first, right? The automation concept of saying, let's just replicate what humans do well, versus parts that you say, well, if you just take what SDR is doing today and just do it automatically, you're not going to earn a lot. So
yeah, I think it's he told me he was going to ask this question. This is a tough one of like which direction to start from. I think your optimal SDR experience should be more like Iron Man's suit, where the SDR is more functional or has larger functionality from it's not like a complete replacement. It's not a robot like one-to-one replacement. On like what should you learn from machine? What should machines learn on their own, and what should you kind of dictate towards them? I think machines should definitely learn like account prioritization, like where to start with, who to be reaching out to, and those like market signals, like top of funnel stuff. I think is really low-hanging fruit for this industry and easy to apply.
I would add, coming down the funnel, the progression through the funnel and what's the best path through that to get them to that to pipeline, because that's what we're all driving towards. So is there a more, of the multiple paths that we could choose from and what we present to the prospect at any given time, what's the best path for the quickest conversion to an opportunity for where that person is in the funnel?
So it's for all of you really the question: how much would you trust really? It's basically optimization, right? I mean, where in the path? I mean, what should be the next step? What should be, who should we go after? Should we stop? Should we continue, etc. SDR teams are doing it all day long, right? I mean, you're looking at the dashboard, you're looking at results, you're looking at the playbook. What's your take? I mean, today it's not 100% feasible, but is that a direction of saying, yeah, I mean, the optimization of what's the best content, what's the best step, A/B test, but not a person makes this call, but a machine makes this call of what's next. Is that the path to go?
I would say trust your data. Invest in something that's going to help you aggregate the data and make decisions based on that data, but trust your data.
And then trust a human to analyze the data?
Trust a machine. Well, trust a human to oversee the machine analyzing the data. But go with the machine's recommendation. And if you go down that path and 2 weeks, a couple months later, you realize that's not the right path, then reevaluate. But there are these very, very complex algorithms that will look at all sorts of scoring and will show you the best recommended path forward. And I would say trust that, because there is that recency bias with humans. Like, hey, I got this guy on lunch at lunch on a Tuesday. We should all send our cadences on a Tuesday or run our call step on a Tuesday. So that's one thing we want to make sure that's one thing that a machine avoids.
Yeah.
It most certainly removes that emotional element. Yeah. And SDR's experience that will have them try something new. They do it for 2 days. They don't see results. They're ready to bail on it and do something different without really pushing through what the analytics are telling us would work best.
That's an interesting point, because I think if your company is on the smaller side or on the younger side, you probably don't have that great of data to work from. Like, right. They're both coming from pretty well-established brands, Pendo and Intercom. They have good data to work from and make decisions based off of. And that's, if you're going to build AI models or you're going to build AI in your process, you do need good data for that to take judgment from. Otherwise, it's just going to be used industry best practices. And industry best practices are, it's like it's a good side of it and a bad side of it. The bad side of it is like, it's not, that best practice may be the worst practice for your business.
Yeah, and best practices are like, I call it optimization to an average, right? There's an average saying, Tuesday morning or better, or whatever it is, but they don't take into consideration each and every single, target prospect or target account or industry that you're working with. And as Michelle said, I mean, AI has no, I say that AI has no sentiments, right? I mean, they don't have this bias. So, well, I'm biased because I honestly believe that this is the path to take. But I really think that there's great advantages when it comes specifically to the optimization piece. If you, as you said, if you have great data and your own experience and thousands or tens of thousands of data points of your audience, great. But if you're a smaller team, then I think learning from models that were already trained and machines that already kind of know how to look at your playbook and optimize things. I mean, Reggie was here, obviously taking it on a different aspect of the content specifically. I think it's extremely valuable, especially as you start your motion in sales development and you build your team and you go into that. Last topic really, and then we'll open up for questions. We intentionally had different, not all like current SDR leaders in the panel today. So there's different people involved, obviously, in persona in the sales organization. There's the SDR leader, there are SDR themselves, there's the sales ops, which you kind of represent because you're providing companies with sales ops to some extent, services. There's a back move from SDR to the account executive side, which obviously care about something else. So the question really is, there's different KPIs, and although we all work for the same goal, we each have different goals and success criteria for our own team. And from your perspective, and also looking toward the next 2 years, if you look at the highest priority for sales up, for SDR leader, for the sales team, what would you like to see, or where would you say that this person should be focusing their effort when it comes to technology solution and AI solutions? I mean, what areas and what would they care about the most? And by the way, the reason I'm asking this in an SDR conference is really because you're working with others that are not, you are the SDR leader, but you're working with those others. So you need to keep this in mind as you bring new solution into account.
Yep. I think from a sales ops perspective, one thing that I don't see small companies doing enough is helping their SDR teams understand where to start in their account, where to start with like their data, like giving them tools to understand their world, which accounts to go after, to shrink so they're not boiling the ocean. It seems like table stakes for pretty well established companies, but it's like top 20% of ops leaders are actually doing that. So if your team is not doing that today, go home and talk to your ops leader and say, how do we better slice the ocean for these SDRs to know where to start, especially if you have a really large TAM. If you're like a DocuSign with a big TAM, you can sell to anybody in theory. Like that's the first place to start.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this last night. I think about this from a sales development leader perspective and coming into forecast calls and not forecasting the deals that are closing, but forecasting pipeline, where we're at today, where we expect to be, and where we're going to start the next quarter from our day one pipe perspective. And there are times that I walk in and I feel like I'm just kind of rolling the dice there with like what I see from activities. Joe was talking about it earlier in the model. You know, we base a lot of our numbers off of the activities and the conversion of those activities to meetings to opportunities, and we build data. We can rely on that, but it would sure be helpful using AI to see further down the road and be able to manage the business, the resources, the accounts that we're going after, and understand what is coming up and respond to that versus reacting to it. So get in front of it and be proactive versus being reactive to like, hey, we didn't get enough SQOs that we thought we were last week. You know, what are we doing about it this week? And it's just too short-sighted from an operational perspective within the sales development organization.
Yeah, I think we see it with sales development team all the time. Like at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, they know. And they know that this rep was, got a territory that was too small, or that account list or new source was completely off, or our, new playbook or new set of emails that we started using, or the new channel that we decided to go with LinkedIn Connects didn't work. But you know it after a month. And that's sometimes too late. Like, okay, now I missed my goal. And then, your goals are basically the foundations for the rest of the funnel for the whole company, right? For the whole sales funnel. So, and not enough meetings, not enough opportunities. Now you're in a big problem. And I think, reporting comes in outreach and sales, often others, and also, obviously in our product and many others. But I think we as, AI vendors, right, trying to help sales development teams, we really see that. And we really try to close this gap and try to use what we learned to have those alerts soon enough. And not just saying, okay, this person didn't do enough activities, but just like predict of this is not going to have enough meeting. This source is not going to work. This account list is not going to work. Your playbook is at risk early enough, like within a week and not within a month. And that's a big change. Until you adopt that, the bare minimum that I would recommend is like trying to sit with your BI team. Trying to sit with your BI team and trying to create predictions. It's some custom work that you might need to do, but I personally think, and I don't know what's your opinion on that, but that it's worth it, because then you get more visibility than the off-the-shelf products that you have today. What's your thought from sales AE?
Yeah, so from a sales leadership perspective, everything that you guys mentioned really does drive the ultimate goal of driving more revenue for the business. The pipeline that the SDRs are generating goes to AEs that then close. The target assessment, understanding your target market, prioritizing the target market, gets the SDRs in front of the right individuals to then pass over to the AEs to then close. So all of the goals here are aligned, I think, in a way. From a sales leadership perspective, it really comes to working closest to the dollar. So I'll get a little bit more granular here. We talked about this earlier in terms of specific prospect targeting. So you nail down your account list, you prioritize that, And then prioritizing the highest propensity to respond, highest propensity to buy target personas within that account list really does tee up the AEs that you'll be passing deals to as an SDR to really succeed. Shortens deal cycles. We will see situations where there'll be less multi-threading because we're talking to the right context at the right time. The economic buyer's in the room right off the bat, which I think is really important. So I'd love to see, like AI continue to get really strong here. Like, and very, very clearly, like we're in the beginning days of actual pure machine learning, natural language processing, AI actually having a really strong impact on the content that SDRs are sending. And we've seen some companies out there who are using some stuff like that, but like this is very early. So I'd love to see like those algorithms, those models, best practices across different verticals, different industries, really start sharing data. And I think in the next couple of years, like that's going to be a really, really interesting kind of convergence of knowledge for all businesses and all SDR orgs.
Awesome. So we have a few minutes left. Any, questions that you have for this great forum? Yes, please.
It's my exercise for today.
All right, so this may seem a little controversial, but you mentioned about building processes that are AI-led, 90% of it leveraging, the technology, and then 10% having personalization. My question is the 10% worth it for the SDR to still be relevant?
I think you need smarter SDRs. That's what it comes down to. You're going to build people that are more systems and process oriented and more deep in the technology. If you're thinking about applying, like adding AI into your process, talk to the vendors, but really vet them. Like ask them to teach you and understand like where are things happening and why. We're RightBound customers. They're great, but if you talk to their team, get in the weeds with them. If you talk to Reg AI, how is it working? So that you understand at a deep level, okay, here's the strengths and weaknesses of this tool and this technology and how it's going to help me and my team. And that way you can go back and teach your team of like, okay, here's the strengths, here's the weaknesses, here's where it might fail. And I think there's no easy or direct way. There's no flip on switch. I think, I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's not like John Henry versus the machine. I think it's more like Iron Man in terms of what the future of SDR looks like.
Yeah. I think it's totally worth the time. I think that if, sales leadership that think, that meetings are going to fall off the sky with some magical AI solution that's going to take 100%, it's not going to happen. And again, we're selling AI solution. We are telling all our customers, like, they're either about personalized follow-up or sometimes a personalized first touch for the strategic account or, obviously calling it. There's parts of SDR work that I don't foresee it. Maybe not never, no one knows when, but anytime soon that, machine would completely replace. So yes, I think that 10%, sometimes it's 30% is really worth it to take the SDR time. Other questions?
Quick comment, actually, and would love to get your perspective as well.
Yeah, the online people.
I know you do.
So quick comment, and would love to get your perspective as well. So one thing is about 10% personalization, but even outside of that, like if you think of any task that someone does, some of you were worried that, what if AI sends an email automatically and the customer sees it, and that's a high risk endeavor, essentially. But if I look at the evolution of AI, one of the things that is interesting to me is what fraction gets automated. So not so much personalization, but what fraction of the tasks start getting automated. So for example, Google search is probably the best example. It's gotten scary good at how to autocomplete Google search to the point where people think that it's listening to your phones, right? That's how good it is. And Google is definitely not listening to your phones, but and that keeps getting pushed, right? Like you can imagine intercom as an example where it starts auto-completing, but not sending it. And sending is still up to you. And Grammarly starts correcting your language, but maybe you want the grammatical mistake in there because I don't want apostrophe everywhere, it's supposed to be. So what do you think of that as a paradigm where you actually don't do the task, but help automate 70% of it, but humans actually come in to complete it? So that way there's just no risk, but at the same time, you automate a lot of the processes in between.
So the question is like, or comment is like, okay, so you take the machine doing 70% and the person just, verifies or double check, or, is that?
Yeah, so basically you take the risk completely out.
Yeah.
Because nothing gets sent to the customers directly. Mm-hmm. There's no high risk issues there. But at the same time, you get the 70% benefit because machines actually take you all the way there.
Yeah, so I actually really, really like the scenario that you set up there, because I think about our sequences today, whether it's inbound or outbound, and they're defined and framed, and we work a prospect, through that sequence. And at any point in time, they may engage differently with our content, with our organization, with a field event. That's not known to that sequence. It may not be known to that SDR unless they're really monitoring all of the activities from the we've got Marketo, so we see the interesting moments in the different engagement. But that takes a lot of time and effort for each contact that you're working every day, right? There's hundreds in a week that an individual SDR is working. So that's one element in being able to pull that information together and make the recommendation of a different next touch than the canned, prescriptive one that's in the sequence that they're following per the playbook. I think the other aspect of that is the human nature to want to control things. And that's probably where most of the friction within an organization, especially from an account executive perspective, there's account executive personas that don't want to let the SDR touch any of their accounts, right? So now you introduce AI touching their accounts, with automation, and they're really freaked out about it, right? So I think giving the recommendation of what to do next opens up the control, kind of soothes, put some salve on that control issue, as well as takes into consideration all of the things that have happened since the last touch, so that you can be more thoughtful, more relevant, and more real with the prospect as you're reaching out to them.
The one thing I'll mention too is obviously the more data you have, the more certain you can have making those suggestions. And each time you click on that suggestion, then you're reinforcing that model. So, it may be a matter of time until some of that stuff that we are approving as humans starts to become more automated.
You become confident in it, right?
Right.
Because it produces the results. So you gain confidence in what's being recommended, and then you're more likely to allow more automation.
And it becomes more confident in itself.
Yeah. I think also that the market's getting more aware of prospecting techniques. I think, saying somebody's school that they went to and the team that they root for in an outbound email is it's not enough. It's not enough, guys. It's almost a race to see who can be more human in their outbound outreach. And I think that leaves a lot of space to automate what can be automated, like on the back end, to help those humans understand, okay, this is where this is where the human applies, go be human. And I think that's the future.
Great. So we're more than out of time. So I appreciate you coming here, the respective panel. So thank you very much. And thank you for listening and joining us today.